power outages lasting for days, a healthcare system admired around the world, tiny hummingbirds found nowhere else on Earth, classic American cars slowly disappearing, and a new generation of entrepreneurs changing the country's future. This is modern Cuba, a place where history and the future exist side by side. Here are 15 fascinating facts about Cuba that most people have never heard. Cuba's historic nationwide blackout. One of the biggest stories coming out of Cuba in recent years has been the country's repeated nationwide power outages. Unlike the short blackouts that many people associate with tropical storms, these failures left millions of people without electricity for many hours, and in some places, even several days. The main reasons include aging power plants, decades of limited investment, fuel shortages, and damage caused by powerful hurricanes. Electricity has become an important part of everyday life. So when the grid collapses, schools, hospitals, businesses, internet services, and public transportation are all affected. Many families have learned to keep emergency supplies, rechargeable lights, and portable batteries at home because they never know when the next outage might happen. The government has also started investing in new solar energy projects to reduce its dependence on imported fuel, which often costs hundreds of millions of American dollars each year, or billions of Cuban pesos. While the situation has improved in some regions, reliable electricity remains one of the biggest challenges facing modern Cuba, and it continues to influence almost every aspect of daily life across the island. A new generation of private businesses. For many decades, Cuba was known as a country where almost every business was owned and operated by the state. However, that picture has been changing rapidly in recent years. The government has allowed thousands of privately owned small and medium-sized businesses to open, creating new opportunities for entrepreneurs across the island. Today, Cubans can launch companies that produce food, manufacture furniture, develop software, repair electronics, provide transportation, or operate restaurants and cafes. Many of these businesses have introduced products and services that were difficult or even impossible to find just a few years ago. While business owners still face major obstacles such as high import costs, limited access to supplies, inflation, and frequent power outages, many continue to expand because local demand remains strong. Some successful companies now generate annual revenues worth hundreds of thousands of American dollars, equivalent to many millions of Cuban pesos. This growing private sector has begun reshaping the country's economy, creating jobs and encouraging innovation. Although Cuba remains a socialist nation, the rise of private enterprise represents one of the most significant economic changes the country has experienced in decades, offering a glimpse of a more diverse and dynamic future. The Great Migration changing Cuba forever. Cuba is experiencing one of the largest waves of emigration in its modern history, and the effects can be seen almost everywhere across the country. Hundreds of thousands of Cubans have left the island in recent years, searching for better economic opportunities, higher wages, and greater personal freedom abroad. Many have settled in the United States, Spain, Mexico, and several Latin American countries, while others continue moving farther across Europe. Entire neighborhoods have changed as young adults and skilled workers leave, often leaving behind older relatives. This migration has contributed to labor shortages in many industries, including healthcare, education, construction, and agriculture. Families frequently stay connected through video calls and financial support sent from abroad. These money transfers amount to billions of American dollars every year, equivalent to hundreds of billions of Cuban pesos, making them one of the country's most important sources of income. At the same time, fewer young people mean fewer workers to support Cuba's aging population and future economy. The result is a nation undergoing one of its most significant demographic transformations, with changes that will likely shape Cuban society for many years to come. Why finding food has become a daily challenge. Although Cuba has fertile farmland and a long agricultural tradition, putting food on the table has become increasingly difficult for many families. Grocery stores often have empty shelves, and basic products such as rice, cooking oil, flour, eggs, milk, and chicken can disappear for days or even weeks before becoming available again. When supplies arrive, long lines usually form early in the morning, as people hope to buy limited quantities before everything sells out. Several factors have contributed to these shortages, including outdated farming equipment, limited access to fertilizer and fuel, extreme weather, transportation problems, and a heavy reliance on imported food. Inflation has also pushed prices much higher than many salaries can comfortably support. As a result, many Cubans shop at private markets where prices are higher but products are easier to find. Some families spend well over $100 each month on food, equivalent to many tens of thousands of Cuban pesos, despite earning far less. Others grow vegetables in small gardens or rely on help from relatives living abroad. These everyday challenges have made food security one of the most important issues affecting life in modern Cuba, influencing everything from family budgets to long-term health and nutrition. Cuba's remarkably healthy coral reefs. While many coral reefs around the world have suffered severe damage from pollution, overfishing, and climate change, Cuba is home to some of the healthiest coral reef ecosystems in the Caribbean. Stretching along much of the island's coastline, these underwater landscapes are filled with colorful corals, sea fans, tropical fish, sea turtles, rays, and countless other marine species. Scientists believe one reason these reefs remain in relatively good condition is that large sections of Cuba's coastline have experienced less coastal development than many neighboring tourist destinations. The government has also established extensive marine protected areas where fishing and other human activities are carefully managed. Healthy coral reefs are important because they protect beaches from powerful waves, support local fisheries, and attract divers from around the world. They also provide habitat for thousands of marine organisms that depend on these fragile ecosystems for survival. However, Cuba's reefs are not completely safe. Rising ocean temperatures, stronger hurricanes, coral diseases, and ocean acidification continue to threaten their future. Researchers are closely monitoring these changes and working on conservation projects to preserve one of the Caribbean's greatest natural treasures. These reefs remain an impressive reminder that healthy marine ecosystems can still survive when nature is given enough protection. Home of the world's smallest bird. Cuba is the only place on Earth where you can find the tiny bee hummingbird, the smallest bird in the world. An adult measures only about 5 centimeters in length and weighs less than 2 grams, making it so light that it can comfortably rest on the tip of a person's finger. Despite its incredible size, this miniature bird is an energetic flyer, beating its wings around 80 times every second while hovering in front of flowers to drink nectar. It also plays an important role in Cuba's ecosystems by pollinating many native plants as it moves from flower to flower. Male bee hummingbirds are especially eye-catching, displaying brilliant red, blue, and green feathers that sparkle in the sunlight during the breeding season. Because the species exists nowhere else, it has become one of Cuba's greatest natural symbols and attracts birdwatchers from around the world. Although the bee hummingbird is still found in several parts of the island, habitat loss, changing weather patterns, and the decline of native flowering plants could affect its future. Protecting forests, gardens, and wetlands is therefore essential to ensuring that the world's smallest bird continues to thrive in its only natural home. Cuba's surprising biotechnology success. Despite facing economic difficulties and limited access to many international markets, Cuba has built one of the most advanced biotechnology industries in Latin America. For decades, the country has invested heavily in scientific research, allowing Cuban laboratories to develop vaccines, medicines, and diagnostic technologies that are used both at home and exported to other countries. During the global coronavirus pandemic, Cuba attracted international attention by creating several of its own vaccines, becoming one of the very few nations capable of developing and producing them independently. This achievement highlighted the country's strong network of scientists, doctors, and research institutions. Biotechnology has also become an important source of export income, generating products worth hundreds of millions of American dollars each year, equivalent to many billions of Cuban pesos. Cuban researchers continue working on treatments for cancer, diabetes, infectious diseases, and other serious health conditions. Although laboratories often face shortages of equipment and imported materials due to economic constraints, the sector remains one of Cuba's greatest scientific achievements. It demonstrates how long-term investment in education and research has enabled a relatively small Caribbean nation to make a global impact in the fields of medicine and biotechnology. The disappearing classic American cars. One of the first images that comes to mind when people think of Cuba is its colorful collection of classic American cars from the 1950s. These vintage Chevrolets, Fords, Buicks, and Cadillacs have become worldwide symbols of the island, filling the streets of Havana with bright colors and timeless designs. For decades, Cubans kept these vehicles running by repairing old engines, building replacement parts by hand, and creatively adapting components from completely different cars. However, this famous automotive landscape is slowly beginning to change. As maintenance becomes more expensive and spare parts harder to find, many owners are replacing the original engines with modern diesel or electric systems, while others are retiring their cars altogether. At the same time, newer vehicles from Asia and Europe are becoming more common on Cuban roads. A fully restored classic car can now sell for tens of thousands of American dollars or many millions of Cuban pesos, making these automobiles valuable collector's items rather than simple family transportation. Although they still attract tourists from around the world, the number of authentic, classic American cars is gradually declining, meaning one of Cuba's most iconic sights may become far less common in the years ahead. Chinese electric vehicles are changing Cuba's streets. While Cuba has long been famous for its vintage American cars, a very different kind of vehicle is quietly transforming transportation across the island. In recent years, Chinese-made electric cars, buses, scooters, motorcycles, and three-wheeled taxis have become increasingly common, especially in larger cities. Rising fuel costs, frequent gasoline shortages, and the need for more affordable transportation have encouraged both the government and private businesses to invest in electric mobility. These vehicles are cheaper to operate than traditional gasoline-powered models and require less maintenance because they have fewer moving parts. Electric scooters have become particularly popular among younger Cubans and delivery drivers, offering a practical way to travel through busy streets without relying on expensive fuel. The government has also introduced more electric buses in an effort to modernize public transportation and reduce emissions. Although charging infrastructure is still developing and electricity shortages remain a significant obstacle, the transition continues to gain momentum. New electric vehicles worth many millions of American dollars, equivalent to hundreds of millions of Cuban pesos, have already entered the country through imports and investment programs. As a result, Cuba's roads now present a fascinating contrast, where beautifully restored vintage cars often share the streets with quiet, modern electric vehicles, reflecting a country balancing its rich past with an evolving future. UNESCO treasures beyond Havana. Although Havana attracts most international visitors, some of Cuba's most remarkable places are found far beyond the capital. The country is home to several UNESCO World Heritage Sites that showcase its extraordinary history, architecture, and natural beauty. One of the best examples is Trinidad, a beautifully preserved colonial town where colorful streets, grand mansions, and cobblestone roads look much as they did centuries ago. Another is the Vinales Valley, famous for its dramatic limestone hills, traditional tobacco farms, and breathtaking scenery that has changed very little over generations. In eastern Cuba, the San Pedro de la Roca Castle stands as one of the finest examples of Spanish military architecture in the Caribbean, built to defend the island from pirates and foreign attacks. Cuba is also recognized for important national parks that protect unique ecosystems, forests, and wildlife found nowhere else on Earth. These remarkable destinations receive far fewer visitors than Havana, allowing travelers to experience a quieter and more authentic side of the country. Together, they reveal that Cuba is much more than classic cars and colorful streets. It is a nation rich in culture, history, and natural landscapes that continue to earn worldwide recognition for their outstanding universal value. Cuba's legendary cigar industry faces new challenges. Cuban cigars have long been regarded as some of the finest in the world, with a reputation built on centuries of tradition, skilled craftsmanship, and ideal growing conditions. The rich soils and favorable climate of regions such as Vinales produce tobacco leaves that are carefully harvested, dried, fermented, and rolled entirely by hand by experienced artisans. A single premium cigar passes through many stages before reaching customers, and expert rollers spend years perfecting their technique. Every year, Cuban cigars are exported to dozens of countries, generating hundreds of millions of American dollars in revenue, equivalent to many billions of Cuban pesos, making tobacco one of the country's most valuable export industries. However, the sector now faces several modern challenges. Climate change has brought stronger storms and unpredictable weather, making tobacco farming more difficult. Farmers have also struggled with shortages of fuel, fertilizers, equipment, and labor, while increasing global competition has given buyers more alternatives than ever before. Even so, the words "Made in Cuba" continue to carry enormous prestige among cigar enthusiasts. For many collectors and smokers, an authentic Cuban cigar remains a symbol of tradition, quality, and craftsmanship that few other products in the world can match, despite the industry's growing economic and environmental pressures. Tourists are arriving from unexpected countries. For many years, most visitors to Cuba came from countries such as Canada, Germany, Spain, France, and the United Kingdom. While those markets remain important, the country's tourism industry has been changing in surprising ways. In recent years, Cuba has welcomed growing numbers of travelers from countries that traditionally sent far fewer visitors, including Russia, Turkey, China, and several Latin American nations. Airlines have introduced new direct routes, while travel agencies have expanded vacation packages aimed at these emerging markets. This shift has helped Cuba diversify its tourism industry at a time when visitor numbers from some traditional markets have fluctuated due to economic conditions and changing travel habits. Hotels, restaurants, and tour operators have gradually adapted by offering multilingual services and experiences tailored to different cultures. Tourism remains one of Cuba's most important economic sectors, generating billions of American dollars in revenue each year, equivalent to many hundreds of billions of Cuban pesos, while supporting hundreds of thousands of jobs across the island. Although the industry continues to recover from recent global challenges, these new visitor markets are reshaping the country's tourism landscape. As a result, modern Cuba is becoming an increasingly diverse destination, welcoming travelers from a wider range of cultures than ever before, while continuing to showcase its unique history, music, beaches, and colonial architecture. Urban farming is feeding Cuban cities. One of the most unusual features of modern Cuba is the large number of farms and vegetable gardens located right inside its cities. Empty lots, rooftops, schoolyards, and abandoned spaces have been transformed into productive urban farms where fresh vegetables, herbs, fruits, and other crops are grown just a short distance from the people who buy them. This movement expanded significantly after periods of economic hardship and fuel shortages made it more difficult to transport food from rural areas. By growing produce locally, communities can reduce transportation costs, improve food availability, and offer fresher products to nearby residents. Many of these gardens rely on organic farming methods, natural compost, and biological pest control because imported fertilizers and chemicals are often expensive or difficult to obtain. Local schools and community organizations frequently participate in maintaining these green spaces, making them valuable educational as well as agricultural projects. Some urban farms produce vegetables worth many thousands of American dollars each year, equivalent to millions of Cuban pesos, while supplying neighborhoods that might otherwise struggle to access fresh food. Today, Cuba is often studied by agricultural experts around the world as one of the leading examples of large-scale urban farming, demonstrating how cities can become an active part of food production rather than relying entirely on distant rural farms. Two economies exist side by side. One of the most fascinating aspects of modern Cuba is that many visitors and local residents experience almost two completely different economies. Tourists often stay in comfortable hotels, dine in private restaurants, and pay prices in foreign currencies or with international bank cards at selected businesses. Meanwhile, many Cubans shop in local markets, receive salaries in Cuban pesos, and carefully manage their daily expenses as prices continue to rise. Some stores are stocked with imported products that are difficult for the average Cuban to afford, while others have limited selections of basic goods. Families who receive financial support from relatives living abroad generally enjoy greater purchasing power than those who rely only on local wages. This has created noticeable differences in everyday living standards, even between neighbors living on the same street. Money sent home by Cubans overseas amounts to billions of American dollars each year, equivalent to hundreds of billions of Cuban pesos, providing an important financial lifeline for countless households. Although everyone shares the same country, daily life can look remarkably different depending on income, access to foreign currency, and family connections abroad. This unique economic reality makes Cuba unlike almost any other destination in the Caribbean, where two very different financial worlds often exist side by side. Everyday life in Cuba is changing faster than many people realize. Although Cuba is often portrayed as a country frozen in time, everyday life has been changing far more rapidly than many outsiders realize. Over the past decade, internet access has expanded dramatically. Smartphones have become increasingly common, and digital services now play a much larger role in daily routines. Many Cubans use social media, online messaging, and mobile payment applications to communicate, run businesses, and keep in touch with relatives living abroad. Private cafes, home rentals, delivery services, and small family-owned companies have also become far more visible than they were just a few years ago. At the same time, traditional scenes remain part of everyday life, with classic American cars driving through historic streets, neighbors gathering outside their homes in the evenings, and local markets continuing to serve surrounding communities. This blend of old and new creates a unique atmosphere that is difficult to find anywhere else in the world. Cuba continues to face significant economic challenges, including inflation, power shortages, and the rising cost of living. Yet its people remain widely known for their resilience, creativity, and strong sense of community. The result is a country that is constantly evolving while still preserving many traditions that have defined Cuban life for generations. Every country has a story. Some are simple, others are incredibly complex. Cuba belongs to the second group. It is a nation shaped by history, resilience, creativity, and constant change. No matter how much you think you know about this remarkable island, there is always another layer waiting to be discovered. If you enjoyed this journey, subscribe for more videos like this, and let me know in the comments which country you'd like to explore next. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next adventure.